You eat about 60 pounds of this every year. It's in your cereal, your bread, your ketchup, and even your salad dressing. And if you've ever felt like you couldn't stop eating it, well, there's a reason. Because some studies say it's more addictive than cocaine. But here's the real kicker. Over 12 million people were enslaved, not for gold, not for diamonds, but for sugar. But that's not even the wildest part. You see, this isn't just about candy bars and cupcakes. Sugar is hidden in nearly everything from protein shakes to low-fat granola to your favorite bottled smoothie. The truth, you're probably eating sugar even when you think you're being healthy. And here's the thing they don't want you to know. You're not just craving sugar, your body is wired to chase it. When you eat sugar, your brain lights up like a slot machine. It triggers a flood of dopamine, the same chemical released when you gamble, scroll TikTok, or fall in love. The more you eat, the more you want. And breaking that cycle, it's not just hard, it's war. So now imagine a world where this sweet substance wasn't just in your kitchen, but at the center of global empires, brutal slavery, and billion-dollar lies. This is the dark, sticky, blood-soaked history of sugar. Long before it found its way into lattes and lollipops, sugar began as a wild plant chewed by early humans in New Guinea. It wasn't glamorous, just a fibrous stalk with a sweet surprise, but it was enough to get our species hooked. By around 800 BC, the real sugar revolution was happening in India. Indian scholars weren't just chewing sugarcane, they were boiling the juice down into solid crystals. This breakthrough gave birth to the very first refined sugar. They called it kunda, the origin of the word candy. But sugar wasn't a treat yet, it was medicine. In Ayurvedic texts, sugar was prescribed for stomach issues, kidney infections, and even fevers. It was believed to balance the humors and cleanse the body of toxins. Persian physicians later adopted these ideas and developed their own sugar syrups, used to deliver bitter herbal medicines. Sugar wasn't just helping the medicine go down, it was the medicine. By the 1st century AD, both Greek and Roman generals were sending letters back home marveling about a reed that brings honey without bees. They were tasting refined sugar for the first time, and their minds were blown. But this was just the beginning. Soon, sugar would leave the doctor's table and take the throne at the king's banquet. Once Europe got a taste of sugar, it wasn't just a luxury, it became an obsession. But there was one problem: Europe couldn't grow it. Sugarcane needs tropical heat, humid air, and rich soil. Britain, too cold; France, too rainy. So European powers turned to their new colonies in the Caribbean and South America, and what started as a sweet indulgence became an engine for brutal colonial expansion. Let's talk numbers. By the late 1600s, sugar was so valuable that it rivaled silver and gold. The British Empire used sugar profits to finance wars, expand the navy, and build entire cities. Cities like Liverpool, Bristol, and Nantes became wealthy sugar ports, their docks stacked with barrels of molasses and human cargo. Meanwhile, Portugal and Spain were using sugar money to fund religious missions, colonize vast lands, and outspend their rivals in military campaigns. This wasn't just food. This was economic warfare. Enter the triangle trade. Europeans would ship guns and manufactured goods to Africa. There, they'd trade for enslaved men, women, and children. Those people were packed onto slave ships, transported across the Atlantic, many to sugar plantations in the Caribbean, Brazil, and the American South. From those plantations, ships returned to Europe filled with sugar, rum, and molasses. The loop repeated, profit piled up, and people were destroyed. This system turned sugar into a global commodity, but at a human cost we still haven't fully reckoned with. Some plantations in Haiti and Jamaica became so profitable that European investors called them sugar kingdoms. But they were built on corpses. On some islands, enslaved populations died faster than they could be replaced, meaning constant new shipments of African people were required to maintain sugar output. By the early 1800s, over 90% of enslaved Africans in the Caribbean were working on sugar plantations. Let that sink in. Not for cotton, not for tobacco. For sugar, empires don't just run on steel and oil. Sometimes they run on something that melts in your mouth. If you think working on a sugar plantation was like farming corn or wheat, think again. Sugarcane wasn't just tough to grow, it was violent work. The kind of work that didn't just break your body, it broke your spirit. Enslaved Africans were expected to start work before sunrise and often continued until well after dark. Days stretched for 16 hours or more, 6 days a week. Sundays weren't for rest. They were often used to tend to their own makeshift gardens or sleep off exhaustion. The tools, razor-sharp machetes. The task: hack down 10-foot-tall stalks of sugarcane, plant new ones, and carry the heavy bundles across fields to massive boiling houses. There, enslaved workers would extract juice, boil it down, and crystallize it in intense heat. The boiling rooms were so hot they were nicknamed hells, because that's what they felt like. Workers inhaled steam and smoke for hours, sometimes collapsing from heat stroke. In many places, children were forced into labor as young as 8 years old, handling dangerous tools or feeding fires that powered the mills. And if someone slowed down, stumbled, or resisted, punishment was swift and brutal: whippings, amputations, or worse. There was no medical care, no safety nets, and nutrition, barely enough to stay alive. Enslaved people were fed just enough to work, but never enough to thrive. The average life expectancy for a person brought to a sugar plantation was just 7 to 9 years, not because of age or illness, because the work was designed to grind people into the ground and then replace them. Every spoonful of sugar sweetening Europe's tea had a cost, and that cost was human life. You'd think after centuries of pain, empires, and slavery, the sugar industry might slow down. Instead, it got smarter. By the mid-20th century, sugar was everywhere, but so were heart attacks, obesity, and diabetes. Scientists began asking questions. Was sugar behind the growing health crisis? The answer was yes, but the world wasn't allowed to know, because Big Sugar stepped in. In 1967, internal documents revealed that the Sugar Research Foundation, a U.S. sugar industry group, paid scientists at Harvard University to publish studies that downplayed the dangers of sugar. Instead, they blamed fat for heart disease. That's right, the low-fat diet craze of the 1980s and 90s, fueled by industry-sponsored science. The Harvard scientists who took the money never disclosed the funding. Their sugar-deflecting study was published in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine, and it shaped decades of public health policy. And Big Sugar didn't stop there. As more people began waking up to sugar's role in obesity, cancer, and metabolic disorders, industry groups poured millions into lobbying. They fought against soda taxes in cities like New York and San Francisco, warning labels on sugary drinks in Mexico, and the UK nutritional education reforms in schools. They funded research to claim sugar is fine in moderation, and flooded food marketing with buzzwords like fat-free, natural, and healthy, while loading products with hidden sugar in 50-plus forms: corn syrup, dextrose, fructose, maltose. Their goal wasn't to tell the truth. It was to keep the addiction alive and the profits flowing. And if that meant lying, silencing scientists, or letting people die slowly, so be it. You've probably heard someone say, "I have a sweet tooth." But the truth is, it's not just a preference. It's a chemical craving engineered by biology and exploited by industry. When you eat sugar, your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical also triggered by gambling, sex, scrolling social media, and yes, cocaine. That's not just a dramatic comparison. In lab experiments, rats given the choice between sugar water and cocaine chose sugar, even when it meant getting shocked. Even when they were full. And it doesn't take much to get hooked. Processed sugar spikes your blood glucose, giving you a rush of energy and mood, then slamming you into a crash. That crash makes you want more fast, so you snack again and again. Try quitting sugar for 14 days and you'll see the effects. Day 1-3, headaches, mood swings, irritability. Day 4-7, fatigue, intense cravings, even anxiety. Day 8-14, your taste buds reset. You stop craving constant sweetness. Energy stabilizes. You feel clearer, but most people never make it that far because sugar is everywhere, disguised under names like maltodextrin, agave nectar, invert syrup. Even healthy brands load their protein bars and smoothies with 20-30 g of sugar per serving, almost a day's worth. The system isn't broken. It's built exactly this way. And the hardest part, most of us don't even know we're addicted. In the 1500s, Queen Elizabeth I of England was deeply addicted to sugar. She consumed it in such massive amounts that her teeth turned black and many fell out completely. You'd think this would be a royal embarrassment, but instead it became fashionable. Wealthy elites, desperate to imitate her, stained their teeth black on purpose, using soot, charcoal, even crushed cloves. To them, rotting teeth meant status. It meant you could afford luxury. Even servants got in on it, darkening their teeth to appear wealthy, even if they'd never tasted sugar in their lives. The irony: what started as a healing medicine in ancient India had now become a symbol of decay and addiction. A sweet substance, once prescribed to help digestion and purify the body, had become a disease marker, and people celebrated it. That's the power of sugar. It can rot your teeth and still make you smile. So the next time you stir sugar into your coffee or unwrap a piece of candy, remember, this sweet little grain once built empires, bankrolled wars, and enslaved millions. It wasn't just dessert. It was currency, medicine, and eventually poison. Even today, it hides behind smiling mascots, shiny wrappers, and words like natural or zero fat. But beneath all that, a long, brutal history of control, addiction, and deception. And here's the kicker. This is just one of the everyday objects hiding a story like this. What if I told you the humble pencil, the kind you used in school, was once banned, used in espionage, and became a secret tool of resistance and rebellion? From war rooms to prison cells, this simple stick of graphite left behind more than doodles. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because if sugar can do all that, imagine what your pencil has been up to.